Let's go international. Australian journalist Cheng Li has now hit 1,000 days in a Chinese prison. She's cut off from her children and still unaware of what the crime of which she is charged actually is. Even Prime Minister Albanese raised Cheng Li's detention during his interview with Piers Morgan last week in London, which is an admirably brave stance by a PM who is normally pretty reticent to speak out on human rights issues when it touches China. So, Keith, it's not only Cheng Li, it's also the Uyghurs, Tibet. There are so many important issues of human rights for the Chinese government to face. In not pushing back hard enough on these human rights violations, are Aussie officials risking being seen in the same light as those who, appeased some of the worst behaviours of the Nazis in the 1930s?
Well, Federal Labor claims to have a whole stack of China whisperers, and they're claiming how successful they are at, rebuilding relationships with China. The reasons that the relationship was strained in the first place is because China moved. It wasn't Australia that shifted, it was China. And of course Australia responded when we were in government. I mean, they've even put Kevin Rudd in as the US ambassador on some claim that he's an expert on China and all the other things, not the fact that he just wants to be back out there in the media. I mean, these are difficult issues, as they always are, but we've got to stand up for what we believe is right. I mean, that's what we always did in the coalition. Yep. Labor talk's a big game, but let's see some results.
And finally, Gary, has the time come that we face the reality that we are in something of a version 2 of the Cold War and start to have some of the same pushback on the Chinese Communist Party that we once had for the Soviet Union?
Look, I think it's an interesting analogy, Amanda, and you may be right. But the thing that we've all got to understand is that China, particularly the Communist Party, runs their country the way that suits themselves. And from the Chinese government's point of view, if you are in China, you're Chinese, anywhere in the world, they look at you as part of their fiefdom. And that's their thing. We, as Keith said, have got to stand up for our values. And during that Cold War period, Amanda, before you were born, and I was a young bloke and so was Keith, let me tell you that we stood for values. And Australia wasn't afraid to stand up for what it believed suited Australia. And there were some awkward times. Now, right now, we are the most woke, broke country in the world. We're the first ones to fold when it comes to climate change. We're the first ones to beat ourselves up. China is getting rich off the back of our coal. We're getting poor off the back of not using it. And frankly, it's feeding into inflation. It's creating a circumstance where inflation is going up. And Angus Taylor won't say it because he was a part of that as well in the previous government. But let me tell you that energy prices is the thing that is ruining Australia's economy right now. China doesn't respect us because we don't respect us. And so we've got no chance of telling them what to do, and we don't even know what we're doing ourselves. Simple.
Good point. It starts with self-respect, doesn't it? Thank you both very much, Keith Pitt and Gary Hargraves, for your time.